So welcome to today's Feast for the Soul talk, Feast for the Soul 2023. And I'm very excited about this talk because it's the start of our Compassion in Action series. We had a compassion community conversation last week, and then we've moved into the Compassion in Action series called the Storyteller or the Storytellers. And the action that we're focusing on today is compassionate disruptors. And here we have with us Clare Cable, who's the CEO of the Queen's Nursing Institute of Scotland, and Alison Bunce, who is a Queen's nurse and also UK Nurse of the Year, and Kirsty Nelson, whose camera's not showing at the moment for anybody watching this on catch up on YouTube, but she is present with us, who is a parish nurse. So to put a little bit of preamble to this before we get started with the conversation, I was invited into the Queen's Nursing Institute through Clare, probably 18 months ago, Clare, after we'd been on a talk together, talking about how we can really many of us start a training session during the lunch hours for the nurses, giving them time to enjoy meditation, mindfulness, movement, and a whole range of other resources. And then it was a proper research project. It was talked about beforehand. There were markers put in place, and then it was monitored, and then it followed with very, very, very positive feedback. So meeting Alison and Kirsty and the others, it absolutely filled my heart with what actually was happening in community that until I met you, I didn't know about, and then have been part of it on the periphery for this period of time, knowing that you are actually co-creating compassionate communities. And the main point here that it'd be really good to explore is, firstly, it would be wonderful for people to meet Clare again, Alison and Kirsty. What is it? Who are you? What inspires you? And what have you done in community? 3 big questions. We don't have to explore all that straight away, but the theme is, how could I do this in time to come? How could I just pick the essences that you have created or co-created, and then maybe 1 or 2 seeds in there that inspire others to say, oh, I might have a go at something along those lines in my organisation. So I'd like to hand over to Clare now, just for you to give a little brief introduction, if you would, Clare, because this is recorded separately from the meditation you just led. So Clare, over to you.
Great, thanks, Sue, and thank you so much for the opportunity to share a little bit of kind of what we do. The Queen's Nursing Institute Scotland is a very ancient and quite small not-for-profit based in Edinburgh. We've been there since 1889, and we were established by Florence Nightingale, and our original royal charter from Queen Victoria was to provide home nursing for the sick poor of Scotland. And so today, in the 21st century, we continue to be passionate about social justice. And we have a growing community of nurses who work across Scotland on oil rigs, in schools, in prisons, out in people's homes, who are making a difference for some of Scotland's most marginalised communities. And I would be delighted to introduce Alison and Kirsty, who are both Queen's nurses who are making an extraordinary difference in their own communities. And so, Alison, can I hand over to you and let you introduce yourself and tell everyone a bit about Compassionate Inverclyde?
Yeah, thank you, Claire, and thank you, Sue, and the invitation to speak at this conversation. I too am a nurse, have been a nurse for 42 years, and am very proud to be a nurse and, in fact, to be a Queen's nurse. My background has been mostly in palliative care and considering and being with people at the end of their life. And really, my story began in our community as we moved forward in the hospice, thinking about what will we be facing in the next few years in our local community, from government, from just statistics. And we recognised that our population was growing old. The oldest old was going to be really old and living much longer. But we didn't have the healthcare resource to accommodate looking after everyone that perhaps may need some care. So very bravely and compassionately, the Ardgown Hospice in Greenock agreed that we would embark on a journey of discovery, really, because nobody had a clue what we might evolve or create. But perhaps to think about in a more compassionate way how we can involve our community in helping to look after people, particularly in times of crisis or need. But just after I had started, I then became part of the Queen's Nursing Programme. And to be a Queen's nurse, one of the things that you have to do is be able to inspire others by making a difference. To think outside the box just a wee bit, you know, like when you talk about nursing, people automatically think that you've got a uniform on and you are nursing someone perhaps in a bed or in a ward or in that nursing hands-on manner. And as much as I absolutely loved doing that my whole career, I was at a stage to think about, as a leader, as a nurse leader, how can we look at things differently and how can we address that we identified about the community becoming older and we didn't have the resource to look after that. So I got the privilege to lead this compassionate community. And really it's about ordinary people helping ordinary people in whatever way that they can do to make a difference in someone else's life. Now that might be at the end of their life, but it also might be if they're a new mum and they've just had a baby and they're breastfeeding and they need some support. But what I had to really, I suppose, shout about was trusting and having courage to empower ordinary people when historically we as health professionals almost have, it's only us that can do that. We've got the expertise and we've got the knowledge, but I managed to be, and that's another one of the Queen's Nurses principles, is about inspiring others by bringing others alongside you. So I almost became a salesperson of communicating that we could do this. We could empower our community to really embrace this and get on board and really help each other. And that's what's happened. We've managed to really organically grow different projects like No One Dies Alone. We give out back home boxes to people who have just been discharged from hospital, who perhaps don't have anyone at home that can get them some shopping. We've got friendship hub, singing group to reduce social isolation and loneliness. Back home visitors, new mum companions. We run a high five programme. But all of these things only happen because of the community, because that people have stepped forward and said, do you know what? I actually can do this and I want to help our community. So having trust and courage and making things simple in order to make a difference in somebody's life. So we're still on that journey, and it evolves and grows every day. But by being able to inspire others and being able to think outside the box a wee bit differently has helped that journey start anyway.
That's so inspiring. You know, this is entirely possible. As you say, ordinary people helping ordinary people is huge. And I'm reminded of something that Claire shared with me as we were talking about creating this, about the values of Queen's Nursing, which is be bold, be brave, be bonkers. And it's that ability to risk take, to, as you say, think outside the box, be, as you call yourself, you know, compassionate disruptors. You're able to see, or maybe others are able to see what's wrong, and then actually have the ability to make those changes, those changes that maybe within the existing system would not be, there would be a lot of procedures to go through. You are able to react very quickly, aren't you, to suggestions? Yeah,
we can almost the next day think about how we could work something up. And the very beauty about this is, from the no one dies alone point of view, we can have, if I get a phone call from a nurse in a hospital, I can have somebody sitting beside the bed in 20 minutes, and there's no other service that is able to do that.
Wow, Alison, thank you. My goodness, beautiful, absolutely beautiful. We'll come back to you in a moment, but thank you for that. You. And could we call on Kirsty? Kirsty, his camera's not on, which is fine, but can we hear you, Kirsty? And would you talk a little bit about your journey and the work that you do within parish?
Yes, thank you. I don't know how to follow on from the Nurse of the Year. That's always quite big shoes to follow behind. I suppose my sort of personally, my journey started in 2017. I undertook the Parish Nursing UK course. Now, Parish Nursing Ministries is an international sort of collection of nurses who work in faith environments, providing that link between statutory and spiritual care. And in 2017, I undertook the 4-day course. It was a residential course, and that was when my sort of, I suppose, my journey started. That has completely rewritten my career plan for my life. I work predominantly within the addiction sort of sector. I work autonomously as a registered nurse, not providing clinical care, but providing spiritual care, emotional care, really intensive recovery support, support with mental health, with addiction, alcoholism, sort of homelessness, all of the caveats that go along with poverty, really. And it also led to my introduction to Queen's Nursing, and I undertook the Queen's Nursing programme in 2021. So for me, it's had a huge impact on my career. I was working part-time for the NHS and part-time as a parish nurse. I would do sort of 2 days working within Dundee city centre with sort of some of the most vulnerable people in society. And then I would do 3 days in the community as a community nurse in semi-rural Perthshire. And when I started Queen's Nursing programme, I don't think burnt out really explains how low I was professionally. I was really contemplating giving up nursing. I really thought it had run its course for me. I was sort of burnt out compassionately. I didn't have a lot of compassion left. I was bitter. And something really needed to change. And Queen's nursing, for me, gave me the confidence to sort of redefine my compassion. And I resigned from the NHS, and I'm now working full time within parish nursing. So I work for a very small charity. It comes under the umbrella of one of the parish churches in Dundee. And yeah, we're a small team, but we are obviously working in a very different way to Alison, but similarly, we are also empowering people to take control of their own recovery. We're working with people who are stigmatized, who are marginalized, and we're really just helping them to find the tools that they can redefine themselves. So the journey I undertook through Queen's nursing and sort of rediscovering my passion for nursing, my passion for caring for people, and, you know, for wanting to see people take back control of their own health and their life. That's really what drives our work now. So we do a whole host of different aspects of nursing care. But for us, the most important part is that we will try and nourish people's spiritual care. We'll nurture what's important to them. We'll walk alongside them. Sometimes we're shouting loudly for them, because it's the addiction sector, especially within Dundee, is very difficult. And people's voices are very easily lost. So sometimes we just sort of loan our voices out to be used. And yeah, I suppose that's a very brief description of some of the stuff that we do in my sort of journey so far.
Thank you, Kirsty. That's really clear. The spiritual aspect of helping others, to empower them to be as able and connected as possible, not only with their own energy field, but also with people, with other people, belonging and not feeling alone. So I think it may be a good idea if we could come to Clare and talk just a little bit about some of the values that really do underpin Queen's nurses, because I'm sure we've put a lot in the chat, videos and things for people to go on their own seeker's journey to look at Queen's nursing. What's the key to this, Clare, in terms of ensuring that the nurses are looked after, cared for, able to care for themselves whilst they're doing this work? I will unmute you. Sorry.
Great, thank you, Sue. In the meditation earlier, we were talking about safe space and brave space. And I guess what we try to do as part of our offering from the Queen's Nursing Institute Scotland is we offer a 9-month development programme. It's 9 months because if you can bring a small person from conception to birth in 9 months, it feels as if we as adults ought to be able to be transformed in that period of time. We offer the programme. It's all charitably funded. We have to get money from grant making trusts in order to run it. But what we aim to do is provide that safe and brave space for incredibly knowledgeable, skillful nursing and midwifery practitioners to discover who they really are and reconnect with who they need to become in order to really make a difference, co-producing health and healthful solutions with individuals, families, and communities. As healthcare professionals, we're kind of hardwired to fix. And some of the program is about unlearning fixing and really listening in a new way, in a deeper way, to ourselves and to others, and discerning how we respond in a way that genuinely empowers others. Because so often we inadvertently, I think, disempower others. Just as Alison was describing earlier, sometimes the systems that are developed with good intentions are actually tricky to navigate, tricky to access. And there's something about enabling people to see differently and to have the courage to step in and have courageous conversations, kind of changing the world one conversation at a time. And I think as nurses in the UK, and I don't think it's the same across all countries, but we've maybe lost our sense of agency. There's a kind of hierarchy of health professionals, and I think it's about finding our voice and finding that sense of agency to really listen to what will make the difference for citizens, and particularly our most marginalized citizens who are challenged by poverty, by addiction, and to work alongside to enable people to turn their lives around. But to do that, there's a transformational journey that we each need to go on to become the best version of ourselves, so that we can be truly present with others and listen, listen, and listen, keep listening.
Thank you. Yes, and I'm reminded of the quote that Otto Scharmer uses from a gentleman that he quotes. I think it's Bill somebody. I forget his full name. Is it the success of an intervention depends on the interior
condition of the intervener.
That's it. The success of an intervention depends on the interior condition of the intervener. That is huge, and this is I know Otto Scharmer's work. ULab is part of it's one of the guiding principles, isn't it? Of when you transform yourself, you can transform others.
So there are two kind of the program is based on kind of two theoretical frameworks. One is Theory U, and the awareness-based practices, presencing, and the other is the person-centered framework, the work of Brendan McCormack and Tanya McCants, which gets to the heart of human flourishing, and what a person-centered culture really looks like. So those principles, if you like, that's the theoretical basis of the program that we offer, but it's what each individual brings that enables the transformation.
Thank you, Claire. So, Alison, would you now I may have to unmute you. Can you unmute yourself? Let me just find the button to unmute you. Alison, here we go. Ask to unmute. So, Alison, you put together, didn't you? And I've put it. It's coming in the link, and certainly the interview. You and I did an individual interview, which is going to be shown next week. But you put together, and the Royal College of Nursing have embraced it, of the 12 points to creating compassionate communities. You're obviously not going to express all 12 points because there's a document, but you know, what's the key here? What's the key to help others, help you help others?
I think one of the really crucial elements is around, you know, having community conversations and actually listening to hear what communities say that they need. And not make it a paper exercise, not just listen and then move on to the next thing, but actually truly listen and think, how can we then take that on board and make it happen? And when you do that, and when you can make it happen, then people start sitting up and they trust what you're doing and they want to get on board, and it grows like that. The other one, what I can think about is I do think you need a leader. You need somebody who can drive change forward. Because I think it's a great notion to be able to say, yeah, let the community do it themselves. But actually, if you did that, there will always be a leader. So you do need somebody to start it and drive it forward. Around valuing each other, really, you know, having respect and regard, trust and courage that people have skills and abilities that you can nurture and get on board. Really have a kind of leadership way that's collaborative, that it's not top down or and then very quickly recognise people's skills. So a lot of emotional intelligence around recognising people's skills and ability, and then allowing them to flourish and take things on board and make it happen. Because if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. We can sort that out and do something else. So it's in a way of really just freeing up a way in which that you can work. It also getting the message out using social media. It was very useful to be connected to a recognised and respected organisation. I had a big network of people in my previous job, so I knew a lot of people, and that helped, I think. But interestingly, you know, one of the things that I learned on the Queen's Nursing Programme was how I needed to be my best self. I needed to have freedom. So this job suits me down to the ground because I've got the freedom from systems and different things like that allows me to flourish. And probably I didn't really recognise how much that influenced my practice for all these years. So I wouldn't do well in being caged in somewhere that I wasn't able to be embracing my best self, and I didn't learn that or discern that fully until I went through the programme in the Queen's Nurses, and that has been invaluable.
Thank you. To flourish and thrive rather than work within a system that is probably more fear-based, documentation-based in terms of ensuring that everything is covered. I'm not saying you don't. You do cover everything, but it's that different emphasis. It's that creativity that enables this to grow and flourish, isn't it? Kirsty, hopefully you could unmute. I wonder if you would like to add anything about the creativity within the parish, because clearly you'll be working with a very different client group to the one that you see in hospital and in various settings. Are you able to unmute if I can find you?
Yes, I'm still unmuted. You're okay. I know it's a shame you couldn't see me, Alison, because I think my head was about to fall off. I was nodding so much to what you were saying in that last bit, because it's so true here. I think Alison and I are both very fortunate to work in areas where we can let our sort of creativity really define our work. And coming from perhaps the more rigidity of, you know, what we would now class as statutory services, so your NHS or council or everywhere where you seem to be more ruled by policy and procedure rather than what is actually best for your patients or your clients, or your anybody who uses your service. In parish nursing, we have that flexibility. So a lot of my support is offered over WhatsApp, sometimes over Facebook Messenger. And that's okay, because we're still governed by, the NMC, and we still adhere to all of those sort of guidelines and the guidance. But for the people that we work with, if we are not willing to be flexible, then the support would go unwanted. We have to be prepared to meet them where they are, instead of expecting them to be at our level, because that's unfair. Unless you've been through drug addiction, you will not ever fully understand the grip that it has on every single aspect of your being, and not just your life, but it has a grip on your mental health, your emotional health, your spiritual health. It's all consuming. And if we cannot actually think outside the box to offer alternatives, so as an example, on the back of the Queen's Nursing Programme, I came in, I think we finished it on a Friday, and I came in on the Monday, and I had two girls who had sort of been in and out of our service for the last year. And I asked them, what would you like? What is there not being offered to you? And essentially what Alison said already was a safe space. And that's all they wanted, was a place to be heard. They wanted a place where they could talk openly, without judgment, without fear of retribution on their prescription. To be able to come in and talk about having had a bad weekend where they might have, relapsed, they might have been in contact with people who were challenging, they might have been in a violent situation, but they could come and talk openly about it. So we gave them a space, and we told them that the kettle would be on, and that's now been running for about a year and a half, I think, just about. And we can have anywhere between sort of 4 and 12 women. So we have specifically a women's group, and we have a specific men's group, and it gives them a safe but controlled environment in which they can talk about how difficult life is in recovery, or how difficult addiction is. But we can also signpost, we can also offer additional support. We can meet them where they are. We can go for a coffee and just let them talk. And the power of active listening, I think, is always undervalued, especially within nursing.
Yes, being heard, being seen, being creative within a safe space. It's the recipe, isn't it? It's the ingredients for empowering. Thank you, Kirsty. Claire, may I come back to you? And if you could share a little bit about the Queen's nurses are going into challenging situations, or what's the model for self-care for the Queen's nurses? What's some of the components? Let me unmute you.
I think I managed it.
That others could maybe look to replicating, or if you could share, that would be really, really helpful.
If only there was a magic wand for that one. I think self-care, self-compassion is at the heart of what people discover in the kind of spaces that we try to create. So the program is a combination of residential workshops, co-active coaching, and work in small groups. And through those spaces, I think people experience how important self-care is. And I think it's very much experiential learning. So the first workshop is 5 days. We take everybody to a very beautiful country house hotel. And I kind of make no apology for that, because there is a bit of a, ooh, you know, that's a lot of money. But actually the message is, you are really valuable. You are really important. And we are investing in you and your well-being. Now, the hotel is deliberately kind of in the middle of a huge park in green space. The Wi-Fi is rubbish. The mobile phone signal is patchy, and that's intentional. So people are invited to come and to slow down. And they kind of can't avoid those conversations with self. And in the busyness, we can avoid those conversations. But when we slow down, we're kind of forced to encounter ourselves. And then people generally realize just how close to burnout they may be, and start to have conversations with self and with others about, if I'm going to be the person who makes change, if I'm going to be the person who is able to support individuals and families and communities, I kind of need to do that from a place of flourishing and not from a place of on the edge of burnout. So then the journey is about discovering, so what do I need to flourish? And that will be different for every single one of us. So we introduce people to a whole range of practices, to a range of kind of meditations. Some of you may be familiar with the work of Dr. Patricia Kane and Capacita, which are embodied practices, because some folk find sitting still tricky, and the kind of body work practices are great, and giving people plenty of time to connect with nature, to be outside and to be walking slowly and using all 5 senses. And, you know, generally when we walk, we're walking the dog and we've got our earpods in and we're, you know, listening to favorite tracks or podcasts, but actually to go for a walk that is, you know, slow and has no purpose except to sense what you're hearing and tasting and smelling and connecting with, is a kind of radical experience for many people. But it's in that slowing down that people encounter themselves and then begin to ask the questions about self-care. So there's no recipe about self-care, but it's creating an opportunity for people to explore that for themselves and find what it is that they need, whether that's throwing themselves in the North Sea or getting up at 6 a.m. and being quiet, or journaling, or reading inspiring books, or connecting regularly with one another. That's an individual thing for people to discover for themselves. And we hope that we create the structure, the framework, the encouragement for people to be able to do that.
Yes, and then from that place of stability and in the inner work that allows the alignment to happen, so that you feel nourished, and you're nourished by those who are actually on the course as well, and opening to that expansion of the possibilities that you call, or that we've called this tonight, compassionate disruptors. It's back to that, isn't it? There is something different that needs to happen within the service to actually meet the service needs now and for the future, and being able to recognize what that is, but being supported within that again and again. Alison, you've mentioned, haven't you, about the these making brave decisions, and the support network, how does that work ongoing for you, as you travel through your course and then you travel in to the community? What does that look like?
Yeah, I think it is multifaceted, and it's what suits each individual in some ways. I really embodied and embraced self-care, and made Capacitar part of my daily life. So, and as part of my self-care, so I do the chakra Tai Chi twice a day, in the morning and at night. And I've found that now very, very important. And if I don't do it, then my self-care's out of sync a wee bit. So there's personal, practical things, and it's ignited, something in me at the minute is being ignited to be part of this journey, to be working on my inner soul and spiritual care. So it doesn't stop. It seems to be that there's this, the more you do it, the more you need to be fed. And also, you know, your cohort of Queen's nurses, we communicate, we stay in touch, we play together, we have fun together, but we if there's difficult conversations to be had, then we would do that together as friends, as colleagues, as fellow Queen's nurses. But do you know what it is? You know, like there's a sense of, you don't look at the person, you look right into their heart. And it's, you know, no matter who you serve, no matter who you're with, then that compassion, that looking into somebody's heart and wanting to make a difference. So if one of our Queen's nurses is struggling or needs help, or I would need that myself, then I know that it will come from a place of intention, from the heart, that really, so you've created that network, absolute beauty. I mean, it's almost divine. It's almost like beautiful, and safe, and yeah, like a spider's web. It's really strong, but it's
yeah, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, it's there, it's invisible, it's visible, it's strong, it holds you like a cradle.
yeah.
Thank you. And moving over to Kirsty, are there any points that you'd like to raise here, Kirsty, about the ongoing support within community for yourself? So
Alison really said it beautifully, that the support you get from your cohort, you know, I would add that it's so unique as well. There's not a support like it within, but I've certainly never found one within my nursing career. And just to have on tap the wisdom that comes from, you know, having a group of nurses with, you know, years of experience in different sectors and who understand what it's like to go through the Queen's nurse kind of journey, who understand and get to know you in a way that probably very few people do. You know, I'm so glad that Clare said she was unashamed about using the beautiful house out in Fife, because it's such a magical place that is now and forever will be associated for me with Queen's nursing. There's something about being there, but around the nature that's there, you know, the encouragement of going out on your own for walks, the conversation walks. Queen's nursing really challenged me in my own self-care. So I journal, and I use journaling as a huge tool in a lot of the work that I do with others. You know, it's something that you can write and never look at again, or you can write it down and go back to look at it at a time when you're feeling in a better headspace. And I think journaling is something that is sometimes really overlooked but the benefits are fantastic. I think for my own personal journey, though, the coaching that we received as part of the Queen's Nursing was something that made the biggest difference to me. I'd probably lost a lot of my confidence in myself, not so much in my ability as a nurse, but in me as a person. And the coaching was so unique. It was so targeted to me. And I keep in touch with my coach still. And it was probably the one thing that made the biggest difference. And it was getting me to not be afraid to examine myself. And that's, you know, Queen's Nursing does that beautifully, as it does get you to really look at you and why you do things. And so I will continue to do that probably for the rest of my career, to always stop and take stock. And yeah, the sort of benefits of personal reflection, emotional reflection, but obviously in my line of work it's spiritual reflection, not religious but spiritual. What's important to me? Why am I doing this? What are the benefits to me, body, soul and mind? So yeah, I'll forever be grateful for the experiences of Queen's Nursing.
Thank you, Kirsty. And you said early on in the chat that, you know, you were in the process of actually thinking of leaving nursing, and to leave, and then, or the thought to leave, and then found your way to this beautiful, expansive, transformational program. Is testament in itself that you're here talking about this so beautifully, so wisely, and Alison too. So I'd like to just finish off, if I may, by asking Clare, what do you need, Clare? What do you want? What would you love in a world that was open to you with abundance, to bring this more into the world, to have more nurses trained, or to share with other disciplines, you know, health, social care, education, you know, all the people who work with people. What do you need? What do you want? And I wonder if you can unmute yourself. Yes.
I think it's something that so many people in this virtual Zoom room are already doing. It's that, how do we change the world one compassionate conversation at a time? How do we enable everybody? You know, you can be a compassionate plumber, or, you know, supermarket checkout assistant. It's just about being truly present in the roles that we each play and the conversations that we each have. But as we know, the world is complex and tricky to navigate. And I think the more we can all become conscious and loving and be thoughtful about becoming our best selves, the more we can collectively work to change the world for the better. And I don't think it's unique to nursing, but I think for so many who are in caring roles, whether it's social work or teaching, or we work within systems that paradoxically make it quite difficult to fulfill our sense of vocation, to really make a difference for the people we serve, whether it's children or older people or prisoners. And it's how we work collectively to change those cultures. You know, the language we use is a person-centered culture, but there are other, you know, other theorists who use other language. But how can we create those cultures where we care for one another, where we recognize one another's trauma, where we recognize the things that our colleagues need in order to flourish, to do their best work, to be present for others. So I think it's yeah, as I say, it's not about nursing, it's that kind of collective attention to compassion. If you ask me, just as an aside, what QNIS needs to continue to do the work we do, it's money. So if any of you have friends who are rich philanthropists who would love to support our work, I'd be delighted to hear from you. However, I think in order to spread the work of compassion, Feast for the Soul is doing a wonderful job. And, you know, how do we do that? How do we reach out and connect with our brothers and sisters across the world, one conversation at a time, one random act of kindness at a time?
Thank you. What a beautiful way to conclude our talk tonight, our conversation tonight. I'm so grateful to you, Clare, for having the vision. I'm so grateful to Florence Nightingale and Queen Victoria, who started something so long ago, and that it was picked up again in the recent times. So grateful to Alison for all you do, and that you are now, as UK Nurse of the Year, and I keep saying it, but you now have a mouthpiece in which to go to RCN Congress and all these other places in which to spread the voice, the love, the work that is actually in happening. It's not just an idea or a thought, it's action, isn't it? It's that compassionate action. So thank you, Alison, and thank you, Kirsty. Even though we can't see you, you're so present. Your energy is so present, for all you do for people who are often forgotten, and you're bringing the awareness of that back into full and beautiful vision for us all to consider, the holistic dimension of care, the spiritual part of care. So I'm about to stop the recording. Thank you all for being here and for watching this recording. There's a lot in the chat which you don't get on a recording, but we will post on YouTube with all the links to the Queen's Nursing and everything we've spoken about on the comments under the video. So thank you.